As we come to the quiet end of this journey, let us pause for a moment and remember the gentle truth each idea carries. Beauty does not always require grandeur, nor does peace demand perfection. A handful of twigs, a line of stones, a touch of moss, or the glow of a candle can be enough to transform a corner of your world into a sanctuary. These creations are not only objects to be seen, but feelings to be lived, reminders that simplicity, when tended with love, becomes extraordinary. At TERAFLORA Studio, we believe a garden is never only about plants. It is about presence, story, and spirit. Each project we share is an invitation to slow down, to listen to the rhythm of leaves in the breeze, to notice how sunlight plays upon textures, and to find joy in shaping beauty with your own hands. We hope today's inspiration has sparked something within you, perhaps a new idea for your home, or perhaps only a softer way of seeing the ordinary things around you. Both are enough. Before we part, we want to speak with honesty. This content has been guided and composed with the support of AI, yet every word has been chosen with care to feel tender, human, and sincere. Our aim is always to offer you not only information, but comfort and encouragement, a companionable voice in your creative journey. If you have found a sense of calm here, or a spark of inspiration, we warmly invite you to stay with us. Subscribe to TERAFLORA Studio and let each new story arrive like a small gift, quiet, thoughtful, and ready to help your garden and your days bloom with peace. In every garden, there is a place where structure and growth meet, where the hand of the gardener gently guides the will of the plant. The spiral twig obelisk is one of those quiet inventions that feels both ancient and personal, a shape that rises from the soil like a poem written in wood. To create it, you gather fallen branches, uneven, weathered, carrying the memory of storms, and bind them together in a curve that leans upward, twisting like time itself. There is no perfect geometry here, only patience and intention. Once in place, the magic begins. Beans, peas, or cucumbers sense the path and reach for it. Their tendrils curl like small fingers, grasping each twig as if they have found an old friend. Each day, the spiral grows fuller, green leaves unfurling to form a living sculpture. Soon the air is filled with blossoms, delicate white or yellow stars that signal the promise of harvest. By midsummer, the obelisk is no longer bare wood. It is alive, covered in vines and fruit that dangle like treasures waiting to be discovered. What makes this design so inspiring is its simplicity. You need no expensive materials, no heavy tools, only the branches that nature has already given, rope or twine to bind them, and a little imagination to twist them into form. Even in a small garden or a balcony container, a miniature version can bring the same delight. And because it is handmade, every obelisk is different. Some lean gracefully, others bend dramatically, but each becomes part of the story of your garden. The spiral also teaches patience. As you watch the vines climb higher, day by day, you begin to notice the slow rhythms of growth. The shadow of the obelisk moves with the sun. Leaves stretch wider, blossoms open and fade. Gardening here is not only about food, but about presence, about slowing down enough to notice. When harvest comes, there is a joy in reaching between the twigs to find fresh beans or cucumbers. They taste of effort, of sunlight, of care woven into wood. And when autumn arrives and the vines begin to dry, the obelisk remains, a bare spiral once again, ready to host new life next season. It is a reminder that beauty need not be permanent to be meaningful. With twigs and vines, you build not just support, but a partnership, an upward dance between nature and your hands. As evening falls and the colors of the day soften, the garden often asks for one last gesture of care, a way to welcome the night without losing its warmth. Fairy lantern poles are that quiet answer. Simple branches, tall and weathered, stand planted firmly in the earth like guardians. From their tips dangle mason jars or tin lanterns, each holding a small flame or soft LED light. It is a design that turns a garden into a pathway of gentle stars, guiding your steps with a glow that feels more like an embrace than a spotlight. The beauty of these lantern poles lies in their dual nature, rugged and delicate, strong and tender. The branches themselves are imperfect, their bark rough, their shapes uneven. Yet from this ruggedness hangs something fragile, light. The contrast is what gives them charm. You see strength holding wonder, the earth carrying fire, and you are reminded that beauty often lives in balance. Making them is as simple as it is satisfying. Gather sturdy branches, anchor them into the soil, and hang jars or vessels with wire, rope, or even twine. Inside each jar, place a candle or a solar-powered light. At twilight, the transformation begins. Shadows stretch long across the path, and suddenly your garden feels alive with intimacy, as if each lantern has been placed to honor the night itself. What makes this design so versatile is how easily it adapts. Along a garden walkway, the lanterns become a gentle guide for evening strolls. Clustered around a seating area, they create a circle of warmth perfect for conversation. Even in the smallest balcony garden, a single pole with a lantern can soften the transition from day to night. And the magic grows when nature itself joins in. Fireflies drift close to the glow, their brief sparks echoing the lanterns. A breeze stirs the leaves, and shadows dance against the soil. It is not just decoration, it is atmosphere. The garden hums with sound, with life, with a rhythm that feels both calm and festive. Over time, the poles weather further, their bark darkening, their edges softening. Yet each evening when the lights are lit, they hold the same promise, that night can be a place of wonder. Fairy lantern poles remind us that illumination does not need to dazzle. Sometimes it only needs to guide us gently forward, one soft pool of light at a time. There is something timeless about the sound of water. It softens silence, steadies the heart, and transforms a corner of the garden into a sanctuary. A rustic branch fountain is one of the simplest yet most poetic ways to bring this presence into your space. Built not from marble or steel, but from twigs, driftwood, and stone, it carries with it the quiet dignity of nature reshaped by hand. The process begins with branches gathered from the earth, bent, weathered, imperfect. They are tied together to form channels, gentle paths that guide the water forward. Beneath them, a basin of stones is arranged, each rock chosen for the way it rests, the way it speaks with its neighbors. When the first trickle flows across the wood, the transformation is instant. What was once dry and forgotten becomes alive, carrying movement and sound. This fountain does not demand grandeur. Its charm lies in its humility. The water falls in soft ribbons, scattering droplets that glisten like crystals in the sunlight. Moss gathers at the edges, ferns lean close, butterflies pause on the rim for a sip. By day, it is a mirror of stillness. By night, it becomes a glowing heart when lantern light reflects in the rippling pool. Every moment feels different, every sound slightly new, yet always familiar. Building one is more accessible than many think. A small water pump hidden in the basin keeps the cycle flowing, while driftwood and branches provide the design. You can shape it tall or keep it low, surround it with flowering plants or simple greenery. Each choice adds to the personality of the fountain, making it a reflection not only of nature but also of you. The rustic fountain is more than decoration. It is a rhythm that teaches the garden to breathe. In the quiet of morning, as the first light touches the water, it whispers welcome. At midday, it sparkles with energy, alive with the sun. At dusk, it calms, inviting stillness, conversation, or contemplation. It becomes not just part of the garden, but part of your daily ritual. And when you step away, the memory of its sound follows you. Gentle, steady, like a song that lingers long after it has ended. The rustic branch fountain is proof that beauty can flow from the simplest of materials, turning fallen wood and stone into a living heartbeat for your garden. Every garden holds a corner where imagination can bloom, a place where the ordinary becomes whimsical. Twig mushroom sculptures belong to that corner. They are not grown by nature but shaped by hand, yet they carry the same wonder as if they had sprouted overnight in secret. Their stems are made from simple branches, uneven and rough, while their caps are painted in bright hues, deep crimson, cobalt blue, golden yellow, topped with playful white dots. At first glance, they may seem like decorations, but their presence transforms the mood of the garden. Children crouch low, eyes wide, imagining doors hidden at the base or fairies resting under the painted caps. Adults linger unexpectedly, caught in a smile by their simple charm. In a cluster beneath ferns or beside a mossy stone, they look like a page torn from a storybook, a reminder of tales once told by firelight. The making of these sculptures is as joyful as their display. You gather twigs and branches, cut them into stems, and craft caps from wood slices or shaped clay, painting each one with cheerful colors. There is no need for precision. In fact, the imperfections are what make them magical. A tilted cap suggests a mushroom leaning into conversation. A shorter one nestled close to a taller neighbor feels like family. And when the paint dries, the garden gains not just objects but personalities. Their charm deepens with the seasons. In spring, they peek between fresh shoots and blossoms. In summer, they stand proudly in the sunlight, their colors bold against green leaves. Autumn scatters golden leaves at their feet, blending them into nature's palette. And in winter, when the garden rests, they still glow against the muted earth. Small bursts of color that remind you of warmth and play. What makes twig mushroom sculpture special is how easily they connect imagination to reality. They invite storytelling, inspire laughter, and encourage a closer look at the world beneath our feet. For gardeners, they are proof that not every creation must serve utility. Sometimes beauty alone is enough. As twilight falls, lanterns flicker and the painted caps glow softly, as though they keep a secret light within. And in that moment, the garden feels alive in a new way. Part sanctuary, part stage, part fairy tale. Twig mushrooms remind us that gardens are not only for growing food or flowers, but also for growing wonder. There is a moment in every evening when the sun has slipped away but the night has not fully taken hold. It is a moment of transition, tender and fleeting, and it asks for light that is just as gentle. Pastel branch candle holders answer this call. Fashioned from simple branches, hollowed at the top and painted in soft hues. Mint, lavender, blush, pale yellow. They cradle flames that flicker like whispers. Placed along a garden path or clustered on a rustic table, they transform the space. Shadows bend and sway, stretching across soil and stone, while the soft glow invites stillness. Unlike electric lights that command attention, these small flames do not demand, they invite. They say, sit, linger, breathe. They remind us that sometimes the smallest light carries the most warmth. Making them is as rewarding as watching them glow. You begin with branches that might otherwise be discarded, their surfaces rough, their histories hidden in every knot. A careful cut creates a hollow for the candle. A brush of pastel paint adds playfulness, turning imperfection into charm. And when the flame is lit, the wood and color meet in harmony, the rough and the delicate, the strong and the fragile. The effect deepens with the setting. At a family gathering, the candle holders line the table, their glow mingling with laughter and conversation. Along a garden edge, they create a path of light, guiding steps with quiet elegance. Even indoors, on a windowsill or mantel, they carry the same rustic poetry. The pastel tones soften the atmosphere, blending cheer with calm, adding a touch of handmade intimacy to any evening. But beyond their beauty, there is a lesson in their simplicity. They remind us that discarded branches can hold new purpose, that imperfection can glow with grace, and that light does not have to be overwhelming to be meaningful. The painted tops fade slightly with time, the wood darkens, the wax drips and leaves traces. Yet all of these changes add to their story, not subtract from it. At night's deepest quiet, when the garden hums with crickets and leaves rustle in the breeze, these pastel branch candle holders stand like small guardians of peace. Their flames may burn low, but their memory lingers, carrying the warmth of evening into the heart. There are moments in a garden when beauty is found not in what grows, but in what is given new life. A branch and bottle art wall is one such creation. An unlikely gallery where nature's wood and discarded glass come together to form something luminous. Twigs and branches, uneven and weathered, are tied into a frame. A simple lattice that feels both humble and strong. Within each square rests a glass bottle, green, blue, amber, or clear, each catching the light in its own way. When the sun moves across the sky, the wall shifts with it. In the morning, soft glows spill through, warming the air with subtle color. By midday, the bottles blaze like jewels, scattering fragments of brightness across the soil. At dusk, when fairy lights or small candles are placed inside, the wall becomes a lantern, a mural of glowing colors breathing life into the garden night. What makes this design deeply inspiring is its foundation in renewal. The bottles are not bought, they are collected, kept from being discarded, reborn as art. Their imperfections become character. A crack in the glass catches light differently. A mismatched shape adds rhythm to the design. The branches too tell their own stories, of storms weathered, of seasons endured. Together, they remind us that beauty is not always found in the new, but often in the rebirth of the overlooked. Creating such a wall requires no precision tools, only patience and creativity. A sturdy frame of branches, twine or rope for binding, and bottles of varying sizes slipped into place. Each addition is like a brushstroke on a canvas. You can arrange them by color, by size, or let chance guide the pattern. Over time, the wall becomes more than decoration. It becomes memory of the bottles you once used, the evenings you shared beneath their glow, the seasons that passed as their colors changed with the light. This art wall is not confined to large gardens. Even a small fence can hold a few branches and bottles, turning a plain surface into a playful spectacle. Indoors, against a sunny window, the same effect appears, scattering gems of color across the floor. And as you stand before it, watching the sunlight shift, you feel what the wall is truly saying. That fragments can become whole, that light can be carried even in what was once empty, and that art belongs not only to galleries but also to gardens, humble and alive. Sometimes, the smallest creations carry the greatest wonder. The fairy moss twig house planter is a design that feels lifted straight from a storybook, yet it is built from the most ordinary of materials: fallen branches, patches of moss, and a handful of plants. At first glance, it looks like a tiny cottage hidden among the flowers. Twigs form its walls, uneven and humble, while its roof is carpeted in moss so green and soft it seems alive with whispers of the forest. From its windows spill succulents, their thick leaves glowing with subtle hues. Small blossoms lean at the doorway, as if welcoming you into a world where plants themselves are the residents. It is not just a planter, but a home, though not for people, but for imagination. Children crouch down to peer inside, certain they might glimpse a fairy at the window. Adults, too, pause longer than expected, charmed by the delicate harmony of wood, moss, and living plants. Creating one is less complicated than its magic suggests. Twigs gathered from the ground become frames and walls, tied or glued into shape. Moss is pressed onto the roof, softening every edge, while inside, soil and succulents find their place. The plants are small, but they thrive here, their growth turning the house into a living sculpture. Each season rewrites its story. Spring brings blossoms at the doorstep, summer fills the roof with deeper green, autumn scatters golden leaves across its walls, and winter leaves the moss as a gentle evergreen crown. What makes this planter truly captivating is the way it blends whimsy with life. It does not sit still as a decoration. It grows, changes, breathes. The twigs weather with time, the moss thickens, the plants spill further outward. Each shift adds to its personality, reminding us that beauty is never static but always unfolding. Placed in a corner of the garden, it becomes a focal point, drawing eyes and sparking conversation. On a balcony or windowsill, Even the smallest version can transform a space into a pocket of enchantment. And when evening comes, a soft lantern placed inside turns it into a glowing cottage, alive with light. The fairy moss twig house planter teaches us that even the smallest shelters can hold immense wonder. It is a reminder that gardens are not only for practicality but also for imagination, that in the act of creating, we can rediscover the quiet joy of play. There is a certain kind of magic that happens when you step beneath a tunnel of green. The world narrows, softens, and for a moment you feel as though you are walking into a secret. A twig pergola tunnel walkway brings this enchantment into the garden, not with grand stone or steel, but with the simplest of materials, branches bent and bound together, shaped into arches that rise like the ribs of a cathedral. At first, the structure feels bare, its twigs uneven, imperfect. Yet soon, life arrives. Ivy curls upward, roses stretch across, morning glories unfurl delicate blossoms. With every week, the tunnel changes. In spring, it bursts with new shoots, fresh and eager. In summer, it becomes a living roof of leaves, offering shade and coolness. Autumn scatters warm tones across its frame, while in winter, the bare branches stand as a skeleton of memory, etched against the sky. Walking through it is an experience as much as a sight. Sunlight filters down in broken patches, dappling the ground in moving mosaics. A breeze stirs the leaves overhead, and the air feels alive, almost breathing. Birds dart in and out, butterflies linger on blossoms, and with each step you are reminded that this walkway is not just built, it is grown. The joy of creating such a tunnel lies in its simplicity. Branches are gathered, bent into arcs, and bound with rope or twine. They do not need to be perfect. In fact, their irregular shapes give the structure its charm. Plants do the rest, filling in the gaps, softening the rough lines, weaving strength and grace together. Even a small tunnel, just a few arches, can transform a plain path into something extraordinary. Over time, it becomes a passage not only through the garden but through feeling. Children run beneath it, laughing as petals fall on their shoulders. Couples walk slowly, hand in hand, sensing the intimacy of the space. Even alone, you find yourself pausing, breathing more deeply, aware of the hush the tunnel creates. And when lanterns or fairy lights are strung among the branches, the pergola glows softly at night, turning the walkway into a portal between worlds, ordinary on one side, enchanted on the other. The twig pergola tunnel walkway teaches us that beauty can be built not by covering but by framing, not by closing but by inviting. It is proof that with branches and patience, we can shape not only paths but experiences. In every garden, sound plays as important a role as sight. The rustle of leaves, the hum of insects, the laughter of water, and the sweet, fleeting notes of birdsong. A twig birdhouse village invites these songs closer, transforming the garden into a home not just for plants but for creatures with wings. The houses are simple in form, made from twigs bound together, their rough textures still carrying the stories of the forest. Their roofs are brushed with gentle pastels, mint, lavender, pale blue, colors that glow softly beneath the sunlight. Together they do not stand alone, but in clusters, forming a village that rises above the blossoms like a storybook scene come alive. From afar, they seem whimsical, playful. Yet up close, they hold a quiet truth. Each one is a shelter, a welcome, a space of safety. Sparrows may flutter at the entrance, finches may pause to rest, and in time, nests may form inside. The air above the garden fills with motion, and the garden itself feels brighter, more alive, more complete. Creating such a village requires only patience and imagination. Twigs and branches provide the structure, twine or glue secures them in place, and small cuts create the entrance holes. The roofs, painted in soft tones, bring not only charm but also a hint of protection against the weather. Mounted on poles or placed on fences, the houses rise into the air, visible yet welcoming, humble yet enchanting. What makes the birdhouse village so special is how it bridges people and nature. Children delight in watching birds come and go, imagining each house as a little home bustling with life. Adults find peace in the presence of songbirds, their voices a reminder of rhythms older and freer than our own. The village itself becomes part of the garden's character, a landmark of joy and connection. As the seasons pass, the story deepens. In spring, the houses welcome new beginnings. In summer, they hum with activity. Autumn leaves scatter across their roofs, while in winter, they stand quietly, a promise of return when warmth comes again. The Twig Birdhouse Village is more than decor. It is a gesture of invitation, a symbol that beauty grows greater when shared. It teaches us that gardens do not end at their borders but extend to the sky, to wings, to song. And with each note carried through the air, you are reminded that you have built not just shelter, but harmony. The first step into a garden should feel like an arrival, a moment when the ordinary world pauses and another rhythm begins. A pebble mosaic garden threshold creates that sense of welcome, transforming scattered stones into a tapestry underfoot. Arranged in circles, spirals, or waves, the pebbles become more than fragments of earth. They become art, a language of pattern and patience. Each stone carries its own history. Smooth river rocks whisper of streams and mountains. Weathered shards speak of time and endurance. Together, when placed carefully into the soil, they form a design that seems to ripple outward, drawing you inward even before you see the first blossom or hear the first bird. A threshold like this tells you, care has been given here, beauty begins from the very first step. Creating it is as grounding as the result. You begin by choosing stones not for perfection but for harmony, laying them side by side, letting size and color shape the flow. A circle speaks of wholeness, a wave of movement, a spiral of growth. With each placement, you are both designer and storyteller, weaving meaning into the ground. The process is slow, meditative, as if the earth itself were guiding your hands. Once complete, the threshold changes with the light. In the morning, dew glistens on the stones, making them shine like tiny jewels. At midday, sunlight sharpens their edges, highlighting the geometry. In the evening, petals drifting from nearby flowers soften the design, blending the order of stone with the freedom of nature. At night, lanterns or moonlight scatter across the surface, turning it into a quiet constellation beneath your feet. The beauty of a pebble mosaic threshold lies not only in its appearance but also in its invitation. Guests pause at the entrance, some to admire, others to photograph, all sensing the intention behind it. It says that the garden is not only a place of growth but also of artistry, that even the ground beneath our steps can be shaped with care and love. Over time, the stones may settle, the colors may fade slightly, and moss may creep into the gaps. Far from diminishing the design, these changes deepen it, adding texture and story. The threshold becomes less of a decoration and more of a memory, of the hands that placed each stone, the seasons that passed over them, the footsteps that crossed into wonder. It is a reminder that beauty begins not just in the flowers, but in the very first step you take toward them. Every garden has its quiet corners, places where time slows and imagination awakens. A fairy swing, strung from a sturdy branch with ropes braided in cheerful colors, transforms such a corner into something magical. Simple in form yet rich in feeling, it is not just a seat but a doorway to memory, play, and gentle wonder. The swing itself is made from what is available, perhaps a smooth plank of wood or even a seat shaped from twigs tied together. The ropes are where the magic begins. Braided with threads of red, blue, yellow, and green, or softened into pastels of lavender, mint, and blush, they catch the light as they move. Sunlight gleams on the fibers, petals tucked into the knots flutter in the breeze, and suddenly the swing feels less like furniture and more like a dream suspended between earth and sky. Sitting on it is to step outside of time. For children, it is laughter rising into the air, each push a chance to touch the clouds. For adults, it is memory, the echo of afternoons long past, when joy was measured in the rhythm of swaying back and forth. Even alone, it brings a kind of peace, Flowers blur into colors as you move. The air feels softer, and the world itself seems to breathe with you. Building such a swing is an act of play in itself. Ropes are braided with care, perhaps even painted for brightness. The seat, whether simple or intricate, carries the story of the hands that shaped it. And when it is hung from a tree, it becomes part of both garden and sky, a bridge between stillness and motion. The swing changes with the day. In the morning, dew sparkles on the ropes, fresh and new. At midday, colors glow with brilliance, a ribbon of joy against the blue sky. At dusk, lanterns or the last golden rays of sun cast the swing in silhouette, ropes glowing softly as if holding the last light of the day. The fairy swing does not ask for much space, only for presence. It invites you to sit, to sway, to feel weightless even for a moment. And in that moment, you remember something essential, that gardens are not only places to grow, but also places to dream. Every garden deserves a threshold, a marker between the ordinary and the extraordinary. A rustic driftwood entry arch offers just that, an invitation carved by nature itself. Built from pieces of wood weathered by time and softened by water and wind, the arch rises gently from the earth, anchored by stones that whisper of permanence. It is not merely structure, but story, a doorway that says, "Welcome, this place is alive." The driftwood, with its curves and knots, carries history in every line. Once adrift on riverbanks or shores, it now stands tall, reborn as an entryway. Vines climb across it eagerly, weaving themselves into the frame, blossoms nodding as though greeting each visitor. When you pass beneath, you feel the shift, a quiet crossing into a space touched with intimacy, where every step beyond belongs not just to the ground but to the dream of a garden. The act of building such an arch is both practical and poetic. Driftwood pieces, chosen for their unique shapes, are fitted together, their imperfections becoming strength. Stones at the base anchor the frame, reminding us that balance is found not in symmetry but in harmony. With each vine planted at its roots, the arch transforms further, growing season after season. In spring, tender shoots wrap themselves around its frame. In summer, the arch blooms with color. In autumn, leaves fade into gold. In winter, the bare would stand stark and honest against the sky. Visitors pause before it, often without knowing why. Some take photographs, drawn by its texture and form. Others simply stand for a moment, breathing in the sense of welcome. For children, it becomes a portal into adventure. For couples, a place to pause and share a memory. For wanderers, a sign that they have arrived somewhere tended with care. What makes the driftwood arch remarkable is that it does not impose itself, it invites. Its beauty is in its humility, in the way it frames not just the path beyond, but also the feeling of arrival itself. As the seasons turn, it changes with them, yet its presence remains steady. Timeless, simple, true. To walk through such an arch is to be reminded that gardens are not just collections of plants. They are experiences, and sometimes, all it takes to begin the story is a doorway shaped from wood, stone, and patience. There is a quiet grace in small things, and nowhere is it clearer than in Twig's succulent cradle planters. At first glance, they look like nests, woven from fallen branches and twigs, each one imperfect and tender in shape. Inside, instead of eggs, they cradle tiny gardens, succulents with plump leaves, soft moss, and subtle hues of green, silver, or purple. The effect is simple yet striking, as though the earth itself had decided to hold something precious in its palm. These planters remind us that beauty need not be grand to be meaningful. A handful of twigs gathered from the ground, tied or woven into a circle, is enough to create the base. A lining of moss adds softness, soil gives foundation, and succulents bring life. The plants thrive with little effort, needing only light and minimal water, yet they return so much: color, form, resilience. Their thick leaves store strength. Their compact size invites intimacy. Placed in a garden bed, on a table, or even along a windowsill, These cradles bring a sense of calm. In the morning, dew gathers on the moss and glistens like silver. By day, sunlight makes the succulents glow, highlighting their subtle geometry. At night, under lantern or moonlight, the twig frames cast delicate shadows, turning each cradle into a miniature sculpture. What makes them especially charming is how they echo nature. Birds weave twigs into nests to hold new life. Here, we weave the same materials into forms that hold growth in another way. The connection is quiet but profound. Life cradled by life, resilience supported by simplicity. These cradle planters also encourage creativity. Some are small, holding a single plant like a jewel. Others are larger, clustering succulents together in patterns of texture and color. Arranged in groups, they resemble a village of living nests, each one carrying its own personality. Over time, the moss thickens, the twigs weather, and the succulents expand, making each cradle more beautiful with age. In their presence, you are reminded that gardens are not only about vast landscapes or sweeping designs. They are also about the intimacy of details, the small things that ask you to pause, look closer, and breathe a little slower. Twig succulent cradles teach us that even the humblest of materials can hold wonder, and that sometimes the smallest containers carry the greatest peace. The first thing a visitor sees when approaching a garden is its gate, and what crowns that gate sets the tone for everything that lies beyond. A twig wreath gate topper transforms this entrance into a sign of welcome that changes with the seasons. A circle of wood and nature's gifts woven together to whisper, "This place is tended with love." The wreath begins humbly, with twigs gathered from the ground, uneven, bent, weathered by time. Bound into a circle, they form a shape without beginning or end, a reminder of cycles of return, of life always moving forward. From this simple base, the story of each season is told. In spring, soft blossoms, sprigs of herbs, and pastel ribbons weave themselves into the frame, their freshness a celebration of renewal. By summer, wildflowers, lavender, or even herbs like rosemary join in, their fragrance carried on the warm breeze. When autumn comes, the wreath deepens in tone. Golden leaves, berries, and dried grasses cling to its frame, glowing like embers at sunset. And in winter, evergreens, pine cones, and a dusting of frost or snow transform it into a beacon of warmth against the cold. What makes the wreath so captivating is its ability to evolve. It is never finished, always open to change, always alive to the season's touch. With each shift, it reminds us that beauty is not fixed but flowing, that our gardens are not static but conversations with time. Creating such a topper is as rewarding as it is simple. Twigs are bent and bound, a circle is formed, and with each season you add what feels right: flowers from your own garden, leaves gathered on a walk, herbs clipped from the kitchen, or treasures found on the forest floor. No two wreaths are alike, for each carries the hand of its maker and the spirit of its season. Guests pause at the gate, drawn by the wreath's texture and charm. Some smile at its color, others breathe in its scent, and all feel the quiet invitation it carries. Even when the gate is closed, the wreath speaks. This is a place of care, of creativity, of renewal. The seasonal twig wreath gate topper teaches us that entrances are more than thresholds. They are beginnings. And when crowned with nature's circle, every arrival feels like a homecoming. Sometimes the simplest forms hold the greatest beauty, and a rustic twig ladder shelf proves it. At first glance, it is only a ladder, rough branches tied together, their rungs uneven, their texture marked by knots and bends. Yet when placed in the garden and dressed with pots of herbs, flowers, or succulents, it becomes something much more. A vertical poem of life, a sculpture of wood and green that grows with the seasons. The ladder leans quietly against a fence or wall, unassuming yet charming. On its steps rest small clay pots, basil, mint, thyme spilling their fragrance, daisies nodding in the breeze, ivy tumbling down in graceful arcs. Each rung becomes a stage, each plant a stanza, and together they create a story of growth told step by step. From afar, it looks like art. Up close, it feels like memory. What makes the twig ladder shelf so inspiring is its humility. The branches are not cut to perfection. They are simply gathered and bound, their natural imperfections becoming character. Rope or twine holds them together, reminding us that beauty does not always come from precision but from patience. The shelf itself is functional, yet its presence transforms the space, turning an empty corner into a place of abundance and charm. The process of making one is both practical and creative. With only a few strong branches, some rope, and a little time, you create not just storage but a frame for life. The joy comes later, when you choose which plants will live upon it. A ladder of herbs becomes a tower of flavor for the kitchen. A ladder of blossoms becomes a cascade of color. A ladder of succulents turns into a miniature desert garden rising step by step. As the day passes, the ladder changes with the light. Morning sun warms the pots. Midday casts strong shadows. Evening lanterns turn the twigs into silhouettes. Over time, the wood weathers further. The plants shift and spill over, and the ladder itself begins to feel like it has always been part of the garden. The rustic twig ladder shelf is more than an object. It is an elevation of the ordinary. It reminds us that with even the simplest materials, we can create not only utility but beauty, not only shelves but stories. As we come to the quiet end of this journey, let us pause for a moment and remember the gentle truth each idea carries. Beauty does not always require grandeur, nor does peace demand perfection. A handful of twigs, a line of stones, a touch of moss, or the glow of a candle can be enough to transform a corner of your world into a sanctuary. These creations are not only objects to be seen, but feelings to be lived, reminders that simplicity, when tended with love, becomes extraordinary. At TERAFLORA Studio, we believe a garden is never only about plants. It is about presence, story, and spirit. Each project we share is an invitation to slow down, to listen to the rhythm of leaves in the breeze, to notice how sunlight plays upon textures, and to find joy in shaping beauty with your own hands. We hope today's inspiration has sparked something within you, perhaps a new idea for your home, or perhaps only a softer way of seeing the ordinary things around you. Both are enough. Before we part, we want to speak with honesty. This content has been guided and composed with the support of AI, yet every word has been chosen with care to feel tender, human, and sincere. Our aim is always to offer you not only information, but comfort and encouragement, a companionable voice in your creative journey. If you have found a sense of calm here, or a spark of inspiration, we warmly invite you to stay with us. Subscribe to TERAFLORA Studio and let each new story arrive like a small gift, quiet, thoughtful, and ready to help your garden and your days bloom with peace.